we can also learn things from joy. We can also learn things from gratitude. We can also learn things from incredible experiences of love and compassion and kindness. I saw Yoda in the back of a car looking at me as I was driving, one of those figurines, and I'm like, well, Yoda. How's Yoda spelled in Star Wars? Yoda or something? Yeah, Yoda in Yoda years is Yotta.
Yeah.
Just in case people, get confused.
Okay, yeah.
But should we start with Jon Rahm, Masters champion? Jon Rahm, Masters champion? Congratulations, Jon Rahm. One who has said, I am where I am because I dream it and I believe it. And then you do it. You make choices to make it happen. Yes. Congratulations. So happy for you. And then Jim Nance in the after show, the caddy was wearing 4-9. And it happened to be April 9th, the day that he won. And it was also Easter Sunday, which was one of the previous Spaniards champions days that he had won. And it was also one of the previous Spaniards birthdays that he had won. That's quite a few synchronicities. But we'll leave it at that and simply celebrate and congratulate Jon Rahm for his incredible Masters win over the weekend, going through, surviving the rain and torrential downpours to come out ahead and come from behind and achieve the champion. Get the green jacket. Get that green jacket. Got that green jacket by daring to dream and believing. Jon Rahm also says that he plays his best golf when he's happiest. When he's happiest outside of golf, that's when he said he plays his best golf. And I mean, and when he sank that last putt and he was celebrating, it was a perfect sunset. I mean, the sun was shining at a perfect angle to come in and light that entire feeling and the feeling you could feel. And when they replayed it over and over and over again, that time in which they sunk the putt, everybody celebrating. And that happens for all of us when we have something of achievement, when we're supported and surrounded by people that love us. Right. And daring to dream and then believing and then making choices in every moment to contribute to what that dream is and to fulfill that dream. Right. And I only got to watch that because I had recorded 60 Minutes on my DVR. As I was watching the Masters earlier in the day with my wife. There was a lot of commentary. I like listening to the Cardinals chirp and watching the greens and the wonderful sound of a golf club hitting a golf ball with full energy. But there's a lot of people talking, so I just turned it off and went about my day. And then the next day I turned on 60 Minutes because it was talking about the origin of everything. There was a special on 60 Minutes on Sunday that talked about the origin of everything, and it happened to capture the last moments of the Masters tournament, which I just retold as to many of you will probably already know, or those that don't watch golf now you know. Jon Rahm's the Masters champion for 2023. Congratulations. And so get into the origin of everything, 60 Minutes. James Webb telescope took 25 years to develop, was deployed into the depths of space on Christmas Day, 2021. And they've said that it will be in space for probably 25 years, trying to go to the origin of the Big Bang. So far, a year and a half in, they have discovered that where they thought were just stars are in our space, space, but they're galaxies. Like, they have one view in which it's 130,000 galaxies, and each one of these galaxies is made of billions of stars. What? First of all right, then we're going out, we're spending decades to build a wonderful piece of machinery to send out into space to go look so far out to the beginning of time. and we're not really kind of looking in here. Maybe, can we try that every once in a while? Maybe we'll find something, right? As Einstein says, imagination is everything and logic only takes you from A to B. Imagination is the language of the soul, right? Einstein says that. Anyways, back to James Webb. So James Webb telescope is out there. What they've found so far a year and a half in is they found for right now the oldest galaxy they could find is this red galaxy that's 100 times less massive than our Milky Way, 33 billion light years away from us, and is 320 million years was created 320 million years after the Big Bang is what they say. They can do all these measurements, they can figure out all these things, and what they've measured on this galaxy is that even though it's 100 times less massive than our Milky Way, it produces stars. Oh, also the scientists in the special said it has a heartbeat. It has a heartbeat. It has a heartbeat, and it's producing stars at the same rate as our Milky Way galaxy, even though it's 100 times less massive. Isn't that incredible? To be able to look so far out, that something that's happening as far as we can see is so similar to something that happens every day in our own world, that we have heartbeats, and that, if we want to do a metaphor and or a simulation, it's, our thoughts are those the stars? Or what are these? What are we creating every day, right? If these galaxies are creating stars all the time, that happens with us, and I feel it in my heart, feel it in my soul, that we are so similar to that, and if we just give ourselves a chance to feel that as a potential. You don't have to know it. You have but so many times we have to know things, right? We have to know things, and we have to see it before we believe it. Einstein has a quote. He said, "Everyone knew it was impossible until someone that didn't know came along and did it." 4-minute mile, that's an example. There's all these things that happen out there because we're conditioned with all of these restrictions and all of these constraints and all of these limits. We just operate as we normally do, and we don't know any better. I mean, I think that's the truth, is that we generally just don't know any better, right? And so if we gave ourselves a chance to kind of remove all of that and just be, and just try and take everything at face value for as it is, and not so much as to how we told it is and told that it should be. Give ourselves an opportunity to think about it. Give ourselves the opportunity to be in an awareness to say, let me think about this. Let me think about how that might work. So going back to James Webb, right? We talk about the fact there's this galaxy way out there, like literally the furthest galaxy that we can find that right now has a heartbeat and is generating stars at the same rate as our Milky Way galaxy, even though it's 100 times less massive, which is incredible. And when they're interviewing the head gentleman of the entire program, he basically says, well, all that we see is only 4% or 5%, if we're lucky, as to what we see. 95% is dark matter. So we don't even know. Any of, that's it. We only see 5% of all that is. That's all we see. That's all we're able to kind of, with our light spectrum ability to transmute that into what we see. That's all we can see. So instead of trying to know everything, what if we started operating from feeling? What if we just tried that? Try to operate from feeling and try to connect with our intuition and try to trust that, right? And so talking about something that's so big on such a massive scale as the universe, as to, being in a place where there's 130,000 galaxies of billions of stars all around us. The head of the entire program says that, and he also says something which I thought was incredible as one of the closing statements. He said, We thought it was out there. We hoped it was out there. And now we see it. So these are scientists that need to see things to believe things. But if you listen to the words the gentleman just said, he says, we thought it was out there. We hoped it was out there. So had a thought, had a feeling of hope, and then they see it. Are they surprised? I'm not surprised. they found exactly what they had thought and what they had felt. They see it now. How incredible. How incredible. And we have something that's so massive and something that's so expansive. And then we have something so simple as the electron. So simple as the electron. I didn't know what an electron was, and I guess I'll say that I knew what one was when I was in school and I was tested on it. And I was forced to kind of have a definition, but I came across an article the other day, published by scientists that have been working for decades again to measure and find imperfections in the roundness of an electron, right? And these scientists are incredible to have achieved the feat of gaining a level of accuracy that if an electron was the size of Earth and there was an imperfection the size of a sugar crystal, it would find that imperfection. Isn't that incredible that we can measure to that level of accuracy? And you know what they found? They found that it's rounder than they thought. They found zero imperfections. They found that it is more perfect of roundness than they ever could have conceived. And their comments were, we're going to keep trying to find that imperfection. You go do that. That sounds wonderful. So not only is an electron perfectly round as far as we can measure, but an electron also has no mass. What does that mean, no mass? What is an electron? How does this even work? Why should I care about an electron? Well, an electron carries a negative charge, and an electron is a critical element to literally everything that has mass has an electron paired with it. Anything that we see, anything that's in our universe has an electron that is part of it, as in carries that negative charge. The net total charge of the universe, as defined by science, is zero. So the electron carries a negative charge, and protons and neutrons and all those other points kind of make it to where it's always an equal amount. So there's always an equal amount of neutrons to offset those positive charges. So we have an electron that's perfectly round as far as we can measure. We have an electron that has zero mass as far as we can measure, where our entire world and everything we operate on is based on mass and forcing things and that kind of stuff. So we can't, when an atom is measured, they don't even account for any weight of any electrons, no matter how many there are when they weigh atoms. And then these electrons, guess where light comes from? As electrons go inward, they emit light. They give off energy as an inward towards the nucleus. And as electrons go outwards, they consume energy. They consume that energy that's around them. And so, when people say, and it's a saying that happens often, is, oh, this person lit up the room. They were incredible, right? Oh my God, they were incredible. Like how could that not be something similar that we can correlate, right? And say that there's a similarity there, that something might be connected there, right? Da Vinci, one of the greatest artists of the last 500 years, he's probably still has the most famous painting, Mona Lisa, since, he painted it 500 years ago, said, where the spirit and the hand do not work together, there is no art. Einstein says, where the art is when one hand is in the universe and one hand is in this world, and we act as the conduit of passing energy. All these people that are we classify as some of the most influential that have ever walked among us. They're saying all of these things. And they're feeling all of these things. They're trying to express in words things that so many of us don't even come across in our lifetime unless we're open to it. If we tried, just gave it the chance to check that out. Einstein says imagination is the language of the soul. If you look into that, you'll find everything you need to be whole. Well, he says fulfilled, but it just came out in a way in which it rhymed. So we'll go with that. But seriously, what? That's incredible. That is incredible. That is so, and to be in a world in which we have so much access to information to where we can pull all this stuff together and we can create those webs of intertangled thought that essentially are saying the same thing. Everything is so simple, but we make it so complicated, right? And going back to relativity, right? People that are not people, just any one of us that's in any situation in which we're having the time of our lives. Do we go back and say, oh, that time of our lives was, it was 3 hours. Oh, that was too long. No, we don't do that. No, we don't even think about time. So how do we get into more moments in which we're not thinking about time? Right? I listened back to one of the previous episodes in which I talked about time, and I mentioned time and said we'll talk about it in a later episode, and I think we'll just touch on it every once in a while. But time is something that is a human creation. It's a human thing that is very purposeful. It's within our society, at least to some extent, in which it's a record of when things happen. And as we're meeting and as we have professions and certain things that we're trying to achieve, it absolutely has value, right? Another thing Einstein says is he says, try not to be a success, simply try to be of value. So powerful. So many of us would just consider something like that. We're always chasing success, but if along the way we could be valuable in more moments and be valuable on a daily basis and be valuable in what it is that we're doing and put intention and care into things and I'm sure people are saying, well, I do that. I put intention and care in everything. Well, of course. No one's challenging that at all. We all want to believe that that's what we do, but if we really take time to think about it, are we? Are we giving it our best? Are we doing everything in that moment to be engaged with what it is? And I fail too, even in my experience, when I'm so engaged in whether it's a conversation with a person or whether it's something that I'm watching or any of that. And I think a lot of us can feel this way. It's like we remember those moments. Right? The unfortunate thing is we have so few positive engaging moments that the only engaging moments we remember are the ones that send us through hell, are the ones that send us through struggle, are the ones that send us with so much pain. Those are the ones we remember because we're engaged with them. But if we give ourselves a chance to choose to have more moments of engaging positive interaction. But in order to get there, to be able to do that, I'll be the first to admit, I couldn't get there without finding stillness, without finding an opportunity in every day to be still for at least a few moments. And in stillness, out of stillness, inspiration sparks, right? And out of stillness, those things kind of come about. And it gives us an opportunity to be with our thoughts. And a lot of times we don't want to be with our thoughts. Get away thoughts, like you're aggravating the hell out of me. Don't want your thoughts. Can't sleep because I got a million thoughts running through my head. That was me, 100%. Thankfully, not as much anymore, but it still happens on occasion. Right. And it's all about every day giving ourselves a chance to accept and recognize the small things that we've either overcome or small things that we've achieved or the small things that we recognize in nature. If we're engaged with nature and we're looking at flowers and even sometimes leaves on some plants and some trees, it's like and watching for birds. we forget about things. We start to engage in that. We start to, we don't think about what time it is because we're appreciating what it is that's in front of us. Well, and that could be our loved ones. That could be something that we're super passionate about. That is our calling. That's our vocation. That's something that we want to do, something we believe in ourselves to be doing. Another great example of someone that's believed in themselves and has made such an incredible, mark on this on society and specifically in a community of New York. There's a show called Emergency NYC on Netflix. Incredible show. Ruthie Schatz and 80. Forgive me. Like amazing. Thank you. Like and the first one, Lenox Hill, that came out a few years ago, so great. It's almost like a real life Chicago Med for those of you that know Chicago Med. Chicago Med, another great show. Thank you so much. And if you haven't watched it and don't want any spoilers, pause and then come back in a few seconds. Okay. But for those that either, don't care, just want to hear what I have to say, or don't really care either way, here it goes. So there was an element of that it was an 8-part series in which they basically they're in with the first responding medical staff and certain departments within certain hospitals, Lenox Hill Hospital, Cohen's Children's Hospital in New York, and then different kind of ride how people get to the hospital. So they're watching the Sky Health, which does airlifts, and then they have an ambulance team, incredible team. I love them. That brings people to the hospital. Anyways, so that's the context of the show. In the show, there's this doctor. His name's Dr. David Langer. He's the chair of neurosurgery at Lenox Hill Hospital. He does some of the most complex and high risk surgeries within the field of neurosurgery. And I was watching it this week, and they're chronicling the life, and it's all reality. It's all real stuff. And he came out of Dr. Langer just had a successful surgery with a child that had this brain condition in which there was a tumor and they had to remove it, and it was very, very high risk. And it was there's very few doctors in the world that would even do something like this. But Dr. Sean and Dr. Langer did it together, and they came out of it. And it was so successful. And he said, we have to celebrate these because Lady Luck gives you the other side of it. And, you just don't know, something like that. He definitely talked about Lady Luck. And he definitely said, celebrate the good ones because you don't know what's going to come out on the other side. Another episode, fast forward. Dr. Langer had a skiing accident. Face down in the snow for hours, waiting for the ski patrol to find him. Can't move his legs, can't feel his legs, I think. And he became the patient. He's sitting up in the hospital bed, goes back to Lenox Hill, not afraid of what people might think, not afraid of what fearless, Dr. Langer, fearless, yes, fearless. And he beats to his own drum. All of his colleagues love him because he beats to his own drum, right? So he goes back to the hospital where he knows he's going to get the most love, trusts his team that he's built. And he's sitting there and they say, how do you feel? He says, feeling lucky. What? Okay. You didn't make the connection. He said, after a successful surgery, before he went on vacation, you got to celebrate these because the other side of Lady Luck, you don't know what you're going to get. An amazing achievement to give this kid a new life and their family, an incredible new opportunity to be with their child and to have life that they've never had before. And then he gets on the other side of it. Exactly what he said. And then he's in that moment and and it goes on and he talks about that after having this near-death experience, he has a new perspective on life, that we're here to give, that we're here to love. And it's such a genuine, like heartfelt story and so authentic and so full of inspiration and so full of love. And I think he mentions it's, he had to go through a near-death experience to wake up and say that this is how he wants to live. We don't have to do that. can we just like see that and say, maybe I should consider that. Right. And I think a lot of us, and I was certainly the first one to say this, is that we have to experience pain in order to learn things. First of all, I 100% believe that has truth. But I also believe, and I've had this happen to me in my life, and I'm sure many of us have had this happen to us in our lives, is that we can also learn things from joy. We can also learn things from gratitude. We can also learn things from incredible experiences of love and compassion and kindness, right? And so, like, what if we chose to do that more frequently? What if we chose to be our own drummer to our own music? It's another feeling that I just, a way to describe the feeling that the feelings that are emerging, the feelings that I'm coming in contact with, the feelings that I'm feeling. It's almost like when you have something that you don't use, what happens? Metal, it rusts. A language, you forget how to speak it. Writing, you don't write, you're like, I guess writing is something that's so ingrained in us as children. When we're in school, you're always going to kind of remember, right? But when it's something that's complex, as something, I'll say it's complex because so many of us are focused on everything outside. Is what's inside, to me, feels like it's almost like a musical instrument. I don't know how to play any instruments. I don't at all. But this feels like it's an instrument, and that in order to play, you just need to find the silence, you need to find the peace, and you need to just kind of give yourself the opportunity to listen, give yourself the opportunity to be in the moment. Right? And then finding little ways to do that, finding little ways to be present, and finding little ways to use that energy to connect with others and engage with others, and not just others, but things that we love to do. Find our passion, find what it is that we're here for. Find that. We can do that. We just have to give ourselves a chance. Right? And if we can do that, just like when we're learning as we're children, we're learning our letters, right? We can't write words until we learn our letters, right? You can't play music until some will say you don't need to know the notes. You can go by feeling. Absolutely correct. Right? Another like mark towards doing and operating from feelings instead of from words that are incredibly limiting in and of themselves. Right? But it's the only way we know how to communicate these days. It's words. Nobody really communicates with feelings on a consistent basis. Right? And so, we get to that place and we find that and we feel that connection. And then we keep giving it love. We keep giving it attention, because where we put our attention is where our energy goes. Our energy flows where our attention goes, right? And so, so many people say that. So many people say that. Joe Dispenza says that, and I'm sure there's thousands of other people that say that, right? And if we're honest with ourselves, going back to the electron, right? As it goes outward, what happens? Energy is consumed. As we give, beautiful cardinal. As we distracted by nature, apologies, not sorry. I enjoyed it. And then as you focus inward, it emits light, the electron. As we focus inward, we feel energy. I mean, at least I did. I mean, I can tell you that right now. And so how do we do that? Oh, beautiful Cardi. Mr. Cardi B, what's up? So can we try that? And Dr. Langer, wow, what an incredible inspiration, what an incredible story, and what an incredible level of fearlessness to Go back to your hospital, go back to where you know your people are that love you, and to be in an environment in which you trust the circumstances, you trust that everything's happening, and as you said, try to find the reason in it, try to find an opportunity in it, right? If we can find opportunities in what life gives us, instead of trying to force what we think we know we want, magic can start to happen. Magic, literal magic. Yeah, Harry Potter, that kind of stuff. Maybe if you feel it and you believe it. I mean, it's not going to happen day one, right? Do you start speaking sentences as a child day one? No, it takes years for you to do that. I was watching a documentary on Disney called Dolphin Reef. Beautiful documentary, nature and dolphins and whales and fish and all this good stuff. And they're following this dolphin named Echo, who's trying to grow up, and he looks like a fully adult dolphin, and if you look at him relative to the pod, but he's still learning. He's like probably an adolescent teenager. And they talked about an example, or they talked about a skill that he was trying to learn, where the dolphins would go to this kind of shallow area, and there would be all these razorfish, and they would go dig themselves into the sand. Now I know why they're called razorfish, because they're like razor blades, and they just dig down. And so these razorfish, and all the adult dolphins that all know this skill that they said takes years to develop, where they use sonar and sonar location and the ability to find them and then dig in and get it. All the adults are catching fish. They're digging their noses in the sand and following through and pulling out the fish. And he finds it, and the fish swims away. Fish swims away. He's not following through. He's not following through. When you learn how to play basketball, what do they say? You got to follow through. You got to follow through. If you don't follow through, you ain't going to make nothing. If you don't follow through, you're trying to get the rebound because you know it's not going in. You don't follow through. You got to follow through. Poor little Echo. He was learning. He ain't learned yet, at least from the chronicle of the documentary, But what an incredible metaphor, not even a metaphor, what an incredible story within nature that is the same thing. Is we got to give things time. We all want something to happen. Oh, beautiful butterfly. We all want things happening now. That's where we are in our world. Instant gratification, right? And again, our world. Of course, we're in a common world with 8 billion or however many people there are, but we're all in our own worlds. If we're honest with ourselves, we're all in our own worlds, all in our own thoughts, all in our own feelings, right? And so how do we give ourselves the chance to be in that awareness and to realize that everything that's happening outside of us is so far less important than what's happening inside of us, and allow us to reclaim control of our energy. Get our energy back. Get back to our energy. Get back to our energy, right? Feel the feeling. Feel the feeling. I've got a feeling. Yes, I certainly do. We all do. We all have feelings. It's just, can we realize that there's an opportunity to feel good feelings way more frequently than negative feelings, which was the status quo for my life for my whole life. Man, so much opportunity. What? So much opportunity. Everything's connected. Electrons, negative charge and a positive negative charge of the atom in every atom that is in all of matter in all of our universe. Perfectly round. Doesn't weigh anything as far as we can measure or tell. Yet we don't even consider that could, maybe be something that, oh, by the way, some scientists have said that the body has a net positive charge. Does the possibility exist that if the body, which is where the feelings come from, where we feel the feelings is in our body, that we can create positive charges that could then potentially influence electrons. Like electrons bounce from one thing to another, right? And talking about this universal intelligence, I don't think that you can have a universal intelligence that, let's just say, is tied, kind of gives ourselves the perspective to realize and have awareness to that in our own consciousness. If it's so universal, like, there needs to be something within all that that has core intelligence to which it can then react to which it can then do stuff with, right? Something to think about. Like Einstein says again, everyone knew it was impossible until a fool who didn't know came along and did it. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just trying to live life, trying to see and be aware to certain things and be aware to the possibilities that, again, all potentials exist in the present moment. All potentials, literally all of them. If we can give people kindness and appreciation and gratitude. Patience is the gift we get in return, in which we don't have to think about time. You're like, patience is a gift? What? That's not real. Could be, if you choose it to be. Or not. You do you. We all do us. Everybody makes their own choices. Everybody's on their own path. No reason to criticize anybody. No reason to criticize anybody. Nobody understands anyone's perspective better than that person. Yet we look at people and immediately form opinions, judgments. Don't even give that person an opportunity to speak before we even like label them. That's something that I think we all can work on. I'm working on it. It's something that I've learned and have had more appreciation for, most certainly, in the last 8 months of my life, and is becoming more and more of a thing in which it's not something that I've realized has any value whatsoever. None. Has nothing. It does nothing for anyone, me, my world, or anybody else, to have any criticism for anyone for anything. Everybody makes their own choices. Everybody has their own path. Everybody's on their own journey to live their life however they so choose, right? So we have no real right to criticize anyone, really. But as I say that, everybody's free to their own choices. So if that's something you want to do, you do you. That's something you don't want to do, cool. I'm glad we've gotten to that point, because I feel we could be so much more compassionate to one another than I think a lot of us give ourselves credit for, or a lot of us feel in a lot of scenarios that if we're a group scenario, to be compassionate and be kind is an anomaly almost sometimes. It's like, oh, and using that same kind of element is everybody's looking at you now because you decided to be kind, and they're saying, oh, why you gotta be, blah, 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 blah. Like, just do you. If that's what you feel and that's what you want to do, then just do you. And if you're doing that, then good for you. Good for you. Please spread that love. Spread that love. You're choosing joy. You're choosing happiness. You're choosing to experience happiness by giving that love. And you're not even thinking about that. You're not even thinking about that. And that's the other thing is we feel that we're being generous. We all have this concept of generosity. Talking about Chicago Med, there was an episode that just aired where this big mogul billionaire dude bought the hospital, and there was this incredibly rare condition that someone had, and one of the premises of the story is that this billionaire was being so generous to this family to fly them in private and bring them to the hospital and pay for their entire medical care. He was being so generous, yet he wanted a film crew there to capture it. Yet he wanted this. He wanted that. He wanted this. He wanted that. He wanted all these things, but he was being so generous. How many of us are generous, whether we give a nice tip and then we get something back and we're like, the hell, I tipped them and this isn't even good. Were we really being generous, genuinely generous, or were we having an expectation of getting something in return? Because I think that if we're really honest with ourselves, being generous means giving unconditionally, without condition. You're giving it because there's an appreciation. We're giving it because there's genuine love and no attachment to the reason. We're giving it because we're doing it out of the kindness of our hearts. And I had that tip example. I have had that experience. I have had that experience. Absolutely. Picking up takeout, gave whatever, a 20% tip, everything's wrong. And I get upset. Like they can't get this right. I tipped them, come on. But again, there's an expectation. We have an expectation if we attach any expectations to generosity, I think we have to be honest with ourselves and say, that's not really generosity. We're trying to pay for something in return. We're trying to pay for something and get something back, right? Yet it's not the intention that we labeled it as generosity, right? And so if we're honest with ourselves and we ask why, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper and be in the awareness to say, let's think about this. Giving something and having something tied to it as an expectation, there's no giving there. If we're honest with ourselves, it's literally having an expectation, and you want to call it generosity or label it that. We want to do that because it feels right. It feels full of love. Generosity is a word that's rooted in love. But if it doesn't have the intention tied to it that is unconditional, then for anyone to get upset after being generous to what occurs after being generous is selfish, truly selfish. The definition of selfishness, right? When generosity is supposed to be selfless, right? If we're honest with ourselves and we really look at what we're trying to achieve with generosity, right? What do you got?
I think there's two great, I've just got Albert Einstein quotes up here that sort of speak to this. The first one, the value of a man should be seen in what he gives and not in what he's able to receive, which is a great one. And then another one, which I think just in terms of trying to live and, be as trying to focus on what you can do as best as possible and really without expectation. Any man who can drive safely while kissing a pretty girl is simply not giving the kiss the attention it deserves.
Thank you, Albert. And I think too, we're always consumed with what's next. We're always consumed with what's next, right? Success is somewhere out there. We're always chasing it. But what if success was looked at from the perspective of being a journey and being in the moment, in every moment on that journey, right? And kind of letting things flow and letting things be and going with the universe instead of trying to force things. One of the most incredible examples of this, I started reading the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin recently. Benjamin Franklin, great statesman. For all of those that don't know, I feel like there's probably, if we have international audience members, which I know we do, and thank you so much for tuning in. Benjamin Franklin was part of the Declaration of Independence signing and was a consulate to France and became our bridge during the American Revolution to kind of bring people together and make sure everything that America wanted to happen happened, which ultimately resulted in the independence from England. And so, but I didn't know this, and I thought, talk about someone that went along the stream of the river of life. Benjamin Franklin, when he was, I think he was he dropped out of school or something when he was like 12 years old or something. Like there was some thing that happened, or not really, can't really remember. He was the youngest of 17 children. and I think with his father, it was the youngest of 13 children, with the mother father combination there. He was the youngest, and at 17 years old, he realized that he wanted to be a printer, which I think a lot of us, if we're remembering our history classes in America, realize and remember that. And he got to a point with his brother, which was going to be his master, and he was going to be the apprentice to his brother, who was already a printer. His brother, paraphrasing the kind of stories here, but his brother basically beat him physically, mentally. And there's a quote there's a kind of a section in his autobiography where he says that those experiences where his brother treated him the most awful that he felt a human could be treated, he promised himself that he would never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, when he was in a position of leadership, to treat anybody like that. In fact, the opposite of that, with compassion and with love, is how he would lead, and how he would inspire people, right? So to have that be something that he knows he's not, and to happen so young in life, to then define probably almost every moment that he lived going forward as to how he treated people. It's an incredible example of seeing who we are not first, to then see who we are. And once we see who we are, whoa, watch out, because you know what? We know. That's something we know because we went through an experience. We've gone through an experience, right? And so that in and of itself, and I encourage you to check out the kind of the full story. But basically, so with that, he has a thing with his brother. His brother publishes something that's against the crown of England, and so he's thrown in jail. And then Benjamin Franklin's becomes the head person of this whole paper, and then his brother gets out of jail, and then he says, and then his brother says, "Oh, publicly we're going to say you're free, but we're going to have a side agreement in which you're basically my apprentice, slave, whatever, for the next 10 years, right?" And so he says, "No, I'm not doing that." And he had to conjure up this story to leave and to get out of this whole situation, to leave town. So he had to leave town. He had to get out, right? He had to get out. And so he went to some printer that he knew and said, "Oh, yeah." And this was in Boston. He went to some printer in Boston that he knew and said, "Oh, yeah, go to New York. I know someone there. They might be able to give you a job." So he gets a friend to get him on a boat to New York, 300 miles away. Doesn't really know for sure if he has a job, right? Gets all of his books. He sold most of his books because those were his possessions, and he did it. And he went on this boat, showed up in New York, went to the printer. He said, "Oh, no, sorry, don't have a job for you, but you can go to my colleague in Philadelphia, and the head printer just passed away, and I think so that's now all right." So instead of saying, "I think you might have a job," someone literally in that position just died, so there's probably a better chance. So he'll check that out, and so he gives him the address, but Philadelphia is way further. He went from Boston to New York, and then he had to go from New York to Philadelphia, so more travel. And again, not with any certainty of anything, a 17-year-old traveling about trying to find his way in life, right? So he gets on, they called boats something back then. I want to say schooner. It wasn't a schooner. It was a much more unique, odd name than that. But he gets on this boat, and it's a smaller boat, and they basically crash. There were storms, and the sails were thrashed, and they landed on Long Island, on the rocks off Long Island, and they were for over 30 hours without any what they called victuals, with their food and drink or anything, and they just had one bottle of rum that they shared. Oh, and by the way, one of the guys that was on the same boat, he fell into the water and was going to drown. And so Benjamin Franklin had to go save him, pull him up, and said, "You're right." He's like, "Yeah, well, I guess the drowning kind of woke me up a little bit." So he saved the guy's life, and then there's something open, and they're getting soaking wet. And so, then he has to wait till the next day, and then they finally find a way to get to shore. And then he gets to shore, and then someone tells him, "Oh, you gotta, in order to get to Philadelphia after crash landing on Long Island, which wasn't expected, you got to go to this town called Burlington." And so, but the town in Burlington was 50 miles away. And so, what does he do? Walks. No cars, no taxis, no Uber. He walks. So Benjamin Franklin, 17 years old, only has the clothes on his back because his chest with the few books and clothes that he has is following him to Philadelphia. I guess he sent a telegram, or they didn't have that back then. They sent some sort of communication to whoever had his chest on the original one that was supposed to land in New York that it needs to go to Philadelphia now. And so he walks 3 days on foot. And the first morning he gets completely soaked because it's pouring rain. So from like the first thing in the morning until the midday, he gets soaked and drenched, and then finds an inn and stays there overnight, and then continues on his way, and ultimately gets to the town of Burlington. And when he arrives in Burlington, it's a Saturday, late morning, and he finds out that all the boats just left. All the boats to Philadelphia just left, and the next boat isn't leaving till Tuesday. And so what do? Do you get upset? No, he goes with the flow. So he bought a gingerbread cookie from some nice old woman in town earlier in the day. And once he found out the boats weren't running, and he went to go ask her advice. And so she says, "Oh, stay with me. I'll make you dinner." And like, first of all, that's not something that really happens today, right? Some random stranger showing up at their doorstep saying, "Oh, you made me a gingerbread cookie. Come stay with me tonight." Doesn't happen. So they made a beautiful dinner, and then after dinner, he wanted to walk off his ox cheek because he didn't eat meat. Because Benjamin Franklin was vegetarian, all he could help for the most that he could help it. And so he was walking by the river, and he saw this little boat, and he started talking to him and engaging with them that same night that he landed there, that he was trying that he was going to stay in the gingerbread woman's house. He finds a boat, and they're saying, he's like, "Oh, we're going to Philadelphia." He's like, "Really?" He's like, "Can I come?" And he's like, "Yes." And so he gets on the boat. And so that was around like midnight. And then he rows all night. He rows with everybody all night. They're rowing from Burlington to Philadelphia. How long it is, I don't really know, but I know that they rowed all night, at least in what he put in his autobiography. And then beautiful. And then they finally get to Philadelphia in the morning. Finally get to Philadelphia, and he gives them he had $1 Dutch dollar in his pocket and 1 copper shilling in his pocket. And he gave the copper shilling to the head of the boat and said, "Take this." And they said, No, you rowed all night. You don't need to pay. You paid with your labor of working and rowing, He said, No, like, that's the right thing to do, like, take it. And so then I think they landed at Market Street Wharf, and then he goes into town, and he finds a baker, and he asks for bread. And they don't have the same breads that they had in Boston. All he knows is that he's like, "What can I get for 3 pennies?" Because that's what he gave in Boston. Come to find out, he gets these 3 massive like loaves. He's like, "Whoa, I'll take it. 3 pennies. This is all I get all this. This is great." So he starts eating one, and then the other 2 he said he puts one under each arm, and he starts walking back to the wharf. And he gets back to where the boat that he left. And he took both of the breads that were extra. Hopefully there wasn't too much armpit stench. I don't know. Probably not. I think he gave it out of love. I don't know. But I thought it was funny. They're under his arms, and this dirty guy just gave 2 loaves of bread to people. But, whatever, perspective, right? And so he gave it to a mother and child that were on that boat, with the intention of love, that they had not eaten anything, and they were going to continue their journey wherever it is that they were going. Right. And then walking back through town, he happened to walk by his future wife's house, saw her, and he said he looked in shambles, and she probably thought that, and she was right. But that ended up being his future wife. And then saw his future father-in-law also during that first day that he was in Philadelphia, which I thought was quite ironic. And then he ran into somebody, or he started following a crowd of like nicely dressed people. He's like, "Oh, these people must be like going someplace. Like, let me follow them, And he found out that they were Quakers, and they were going to a Quaker session or meeting or whatever. And so they went into a Quaker house, and they sat down, and he fell asleep. And so I got goosebumps all over. Right, Benjamin? Mostly. So that's the first. So here's a guy who we all know his achievements, electricity discovery during his own time with the key and the kite and all that good stuff, and all these inventions and all these relationships and all Declaration of Independence, all these incredible things. Now he's on a $100 bill. And this was a guy that had nothing. He had nothing, literally nothing. No connections, no money, no clothes. That's it. He made choices. He went with the flow of life. And so all of us that are here saying, oh, I can't do that. I got this. I got that. Look at this guy. Look at Benjamin Franklin. 17 years old. He had nothing. He went with the flow of life, trusted that what should happen would happen, was compassionate, was loving. And look what happened. Look at what happened to him, right? And look what he's known for. One of the most influential people that has ever walked among us, right? As Einstein says, first connects with their spirit, and only then do they connect with their physical selves. And I'll add, and only then do we recognize who they are among us in our society, right? So Benjamin Franklin had one Dutch dollar, one copper shilling at 17 years old with dirty clothes on his back in Philadelphia. And look what he achieved in his life by making choices in every moment throughout not every moment, but progressively more moments in every day, right? Giving us ourselves the opportunity to have, off moments and off days and this and that, and being able to come back and say, that sucked, but moving on and choosing and continuing to move towards what we want, right? But first we got to define what we want. As Oprah says, Oprah's given so many speeches to graduating classes, in which people ask her, in many different interviews that I've seen, where people ask her, what's the best advice you can give? Figure out what it is that you want. Figure out what it is that your dream is. Back to what Jon Rahm said. Jon Rahm said, I am who I am because I dream it and then I believe it. And adding to that, he's made choices to get there. Choices, the power of choices in little moments to move you there and get you there and continue to move you there, and give ourselves credit and celebrate those things, right? Celebrate those things. Oh my God, look at the great choices I made today. Might have only been 2 or 3, but that's okay. Because you know what? Time doesn't exist. It's an illusion. So stop thinking about it. Right? Stop. And it doesn't have to be it's not going to be a cold turkey. Stop thinking about time. It's going to give ourselves an opportunity to every once in a while, be in the flux of relativity, be in the present moment, be engaged with someone, be engaged with nature, be engaged with our soul of what we feel and our intuition, right? Be engaged. Can we be engaged? And when we do that, not only do we forget about time, but we're fearless. We are fearless, absolutely fearless. No fear. I'll be the first to admitting this, first to admit. I've mentioned previously, careful when we have dreams and we have certain things that we believe, and sharing it with those that we think are our support, or our family or our friends, and they genuinely love us. But just as we are, they are too, conditioned in a lot of limitations. And it's an immediate, oh, that's not possible, that's impossible. Impossible is simply a dictionary definition. We're going to find that quote and say who said that, because I know someone said that. You'll hear me say that frequently because it's so important to remember. Impossible is only a dictionary definition, right? And so could we give ourselves credit to not be, and if we're honest with ourselves before even saying anything to anybody else, the first one who throws daggers of doubt and spears of fear? Ourselves. We do it to ourselves. We have this dream. We have this thing that we want to achieve. And the first thing we say is, oh, we can't do that, or we got to do all these things in order to do that. We're the first ones that do that to ourselves. I'll admit, done that, been there, still doing it, working on it. It's not easy. But if we give ourselves a chance and say, no, I believe this. I trust myself. I trust this feeling that I have. if we can feel the feeling that, like, what if we gave ourselves what if we gave our intuition kind of this definition just for reference, that any good thing that happens in our lives and any good thought that comes from our imagination and from our feeling is from our intuition, and it's all, anything that's good comes from there. And anything that's good, if we just follow and we give it a chance, and we don't throw daggers of doubt at our own dreams. We don't throw spears of fear at our own dreams. We're the first ones that do that before even say anything to anybody else. And then when we're doing it, we do it again. And then we start doing it, and we're on the path, and we do it again. Because you know what? We're like, oh, this is too good to be true. No! Stop! We don't need to do that. It's not necessary. Or at least, can we give ourselves a chance to not do that and then see what happens? Do we need to immediately say, oh, no, we can't do that? What does that do? That sends us backwards. That sends us down. That sends us into what we don't want, right? Using our imagination, connecting with our imagination. One of the most imaginative people that's ever walked among us, Walt Disney. Walt Disney came up with Mickey Mouse on a train from Manhattan to Hollywood, in which people were telling him, you're going to be bankrupt, you're failing. What pops into his head? Mickey Mouse. Read a quote later that talked about when he was a child and he was living in a garage, he would have mice running across his like table, and he would draw the mice, right? Talk about a seed that's planted when you're a child, and that seed, you might not have watered it, but it popped up again. Where the past, the present, and the future all exist in the present moment. Of course that popped in, because that was a seed that was planted. And then it became what it became. He said so many times, this all started because of a mouse. This all started because of a mouse. And then you look at some of the things Walt Disney says, the way that he leads, the way that he has inspired generations of people. Imagineers. Why can't we all just be Imagineers? Can we please? Right? Can we all please be Imagineers? Mark Rober, incredible YouTube sensation, bringing engineering back to the forefront of children, and helping inspire young minds to look at things in a way that's practical. I just watched an episode that a colleague and friend of mine, Julia, sent me. Thank you, Julia. Where it was 20 minutes, and they talked about this incredible organization called Zipline, and they're doing these drones, and they're doing these autonomous delivering packages, and all the stuff we saw on Amazon Super Bowl commercial like years ago that hasn't happened yet, right? So like they're working on that stuff. But one of the first things they did was they worked on a program in Africa to deliver emergency medical supplies, whether it be blood or whether it be medicines, within moments. Where Mark Rober, one of the examples, he gets in a car to drive to the hospital. It takes him 4 hours. They launch. He sends a request on his phone to show how fast. Within minutes, the drone drops the parachute and lands right there. Drops the parachute. They've been doing this for 6 years. It looks like an aircraft carrier flinging that drone off, and then it drops it at the perfect point at the hospital, and then it comes right back, and then it catches it, and then they disassemble it and put it all back together. They have reduced maternal mortality by 88% in Rwanda. 88% maternal mortality. How incredible! What an incredible story of people with prioritizing, using technology and prioritizing compassion to put it in a place in which it can matter the most and have the most impact. With a society that only 30 years ago experienced a genocide. Can't even put into words something like that. Yet yet they provide data in the episode where they're some of the most happiest people on the planet. Some of the happiest people on the planet. Once a week, or once a month, or once every other week, the entire community does something for the neighborhood, does something for the community. They all come together. We don't need to go through struggle. It's a way that it happens, but what if we chose to do those things without having to be in that circumstance of pain, right? What an incredibly terrible thing for a country and a people to go through. And then to now be some of the happiest people 30 years later, and one of the happiest societies on the planet in Rwanda. And to chronicle one of the stories of Abdul, wow, what an incredible soul. His family was murdered. His entire family was murdered when he was a child. And he worked with Zipline to perfect, to build on perfection, to continue to evolve this solution for developing and deploying these emergency supplies to these remote areas of Rwanda, right? Like, and to give and to have that platform to create something with so much love and so much compassion, and to have come from where he came from. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. And to do it with such energy and such joy. You can see it, you can feel it. How incredible, right? And then, Mark Rober talking about, like, even in this video, he talked about the best scientists only learn by doing. They learn by experimenting. So what if we took that same logic and applied it to our own lives, to not engineer a thing which has, of course, could have value and could have, great elements of kind of joy for putting something into. But what if instead of trying to engineer something for just a moment, we engineer our life and we apply that same principle, of trying things, apply that same principle of experimenting, giving ourselves a chance to be, giving ourselves a chance to connect with nature, giving ourselves a chance to try things and to choose things that we might not have ever chose, right? And the trust that, and to not have an expectation of something might be too good to be true. Try it out. And you know what? When you're just feeling that it might be too good to be true, the secret that I learned, gratitude. Because you know what happens when we think that something's too good to be true? Fear. That's fear. That's fear. That is fear. We're fearing, oh my God, this can't be true because this is too, no. What if we just said, oh my God, thank you so much. Or just thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much for these achievements. Thank you so much for me to be able to have made the choices to get to where I am now. Thank you. And not having fear, eliminating fear. Bye, fear. Get out of here. I don't need you. We attract what we fear and we attract what we love. Some people call that the law of attraction, but it's just plain true if we're honest with ourselves. Just plain true if we look at our lives and we reflect on the experiences that we've had and we're honest with ourselves. Pulling it all together, one of the recurring themes throughout today's episode, quote by Walt Disney, if you can dream it, you can do it. But you got to have a dream. Got to have a dream first. Oprah said it. Jon Rahm, Masters 2023 champion, said it. Walt Disney said it. Einstein said it. Countless other people, including loved ones in our lives, inspirations in our lives, and our personal lives, have said it. Right? We have this grand, as a society, these grand plans to go to the depths of space to find the origin of the Big Bang and the origin of the universe. What do we find? We find a galaxy 320 million years old, 33 billion light years away, formed 320 million years after the Big Bang, 33 billion light years away. And what does the scientist say? It has a heartbeat. What does the scientist say? It's generating stars as at a rate the same pace as our Milky Way, even though it's 100 times less massive. What is part of every atom? An electron. What is perfectly round? An electron. What has no mass? An electron. What has a negative charge? An electron. Body has a net positive charge. Could it be that how we think, or what we think and what we feel, bonds to those and then kind of forms the reality that comes into our consciousness and our awareness? Maybe, right? As Napoleon says, impossibility is only in the dictionary of fools. We don't want to be a fool. Who wants to be a fool? Nobody wants to be a fool. Come on now. No. Let's focus on what is possible. No fear. So easy to say, so hard to do. But if we can give ourselves a chance and a moment by moment to build upon those things, moment by moment to just be, moment by moment to realize what we've achieved and what we're building upon towards something that we've defined for ourselves as what we want. After connecting with what it is that's inside that we feel we should be doing, that's our intuition telling us, try this. And if it's a good thing, why not give it a chance? Why not give it a chance? I mean, I think most of us immediately say no. We're the first biggest doubters of our own consciousness and our own awareness and our own thoughts. Something good comes, oh, not possible. We're the first ones to do that. I was the first, absolutely. We all do it. But can we more frequently not do that? Can we more frequently allow things to bloom? Can we do that? Let yourself bloom. Saw a beautiful shirt walking the other day. Young woman walking by. Another shirt with some flowers on it. Let yourself bloom. Let yourself bloom. Why not? When have we ever given ourselves the opportunity to do that? And to realize that our limits in our world that we've just lived in and grow up in, that there's so many limits. And if little by little, or in one fell swoop, we do our best to try not to think about those things, and then day by day try and continue to be in an awareness of just being, and being in our own world, and not and being in control of our own world, and claiming our energy. Can we claim our energy? It's within us. It's all around us. When we're focusing outward, just as the electrons, when they go from the inside outward, they consume energy. But when we focus inward, as I can tell you through my experience, I've got some energy. I've got some energy. Could that be the electrons like generating that and creating that light? And when electrons go from the outward in, they emit energy and they emit photons, and photons is light. Photons are light, right? Crazy. Is it crazy? I don't know. Maybe. If we just give ourselves the opportunity to think about it. Can we think about it every once in a while? I don't know why I'm singing. It's just happening.